Okay, this is an amazing episode. This incredible person that is on this week, she survived a near death experience back in 2022. But not only did she experience this, which we're going to talk to in detail, but she also had a profound spiritual awakening and it completely changed her life. She's going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some very sensitive material in this episode because she was trafficked as a child. We're going to bring that up and talk about that because this is all part of her journey and how she became this incredible human that she is and how she's helping others and she demyths the things that you may be thinking about what spiritual awakenings are. And I love that we're going to talk deep about that and her whole Kundalini awakening. And if you don't know what a Kundalini awakening is, you're going to learn about it today. So welcome to Trauma Rockstars, Brheanna.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I've been so excited about this interview because your journey just in general is incredible, but the gifts that you got from it, talk about turning lemons into lemonade, you know?
Well, I mean, I'd like to take some credit for it, but nope, I was just violently shoved into spiritual awakening.
Yeah, and so where do you want to start? What's the easiest way to build up to everything? Because I know you went through so much before this happened in 2020. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I guess in the words of the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland, we'll start at the beginning. When we get to the end, we'll stop.
yeah.
So for me, my journey really did start when I was born. I mean, we all kind of go, when was your awakening? And a small correction, my near death experience was in 2020, which is significant because it was in the height of COVID. But when I was a child, I had an imaginary friend. Her name was Apple Pie, and she was really the only person I communicated with. And she was around from the time I was 3 until I was about 10. 10 was where I would say I had my first biggest trauma point, which I was taken away from the family I knew and sent to a family that I did not know. There was a lot of turmoil in my family dynamic. And so I was sent to go live with my biological father and his family, who I did not know. But at that point is where I lost my imaginary friend. And so that's very significant because in my childhood, I do a lot of inner child healing with my clients. And
Mhm.
I always tell them, like, what did you do when you were a kid? Like, not because somebody told you to, but what was your passion? And for me, it was watching how things worked. Like, I loved watching ant hills. I loved watching birds build nests. I loved sitting in the like I climbed trees all the time and watched the wind blow through the trees. Like, I was just so enamored by those things. And all of that is very significant because my entire life I have been a truth seeker. I researched history until I got past what they taught you and then went into the true histories, and same with religion, and I started to realize very early on that we were being lied to on big global scales. And I just didn't know what to do with that information at the time. But then if you fast forward to 2020, my near death experience happens. I had fungal pneumonia during COVID, and the doctors, I went into the emergency room 3 times that week and they didn't check me for anything but COVID. They gave me antibiotics the first time, then they gave me steroids the second time I went in, and they're like, well, the steroids haven't had a chance to kick in yet. Just go home. And I ended up collapsing in my home later that evening. And I'm rushed to the ER. By that point, it was too late. My lungs were just so discapacitated, I couldn't even breathe. I mean, I was like in and out of consciousness. But then the next thing I remember is literally standing over my body, looking at me, but having zero attachment to that body. I remember looking at it like it was just like your car. You get out of your car, you look at it, cool, there it is. It's a vessel, it's a vehicle, it gets you from place to place. So that was really significant for me in that moment. It was very visceral. I always thought that, what we had been taught, I knew it was incorrect how it was taught, but for me to be standing in that moment of realizing that this was not a one and done lifetime and really knowing it. I remember actually one of my past lives from when I was a child. We'll go back to that too, though. So I knew reincarnation was a thing. I had researched Dr. Ian Stevenson at that point very, very deeply. He was hired by the Vatican to disprove reincarnation. And after he investigated it, realized he couldn't. There was just too much
Mhm.
evidence that backed it up. So I was standing there and I was thinking this because that's how my brain works. It's like, I'm so logic based that I'm like, oh, everything that I thought is accurate. And so after that, there was a messenger, and I won't go into the whole thing because I do talk about these extensively in other like podcasts and TV shows. But I was brought into this vortex, and in that, I had all of this like sacred geometry and symbols like running through my essence. And I knew I was getting upgraded at that time. Now, I was explained that I had given myself an exit clause for my life. And we'll go into that. Like, I knew I was taking on this incredibly difficult lifetime. And so my soul knew I needed a checkpoint. Like, do I want to come back and do my spiritual journey, or do I want to go home? And that's what they told me. Well, I decided to come back, and I literally watched them upgrade my entire DNA system. The sacred geometry that we talk about, you know, the what is it, subatomic, it's right there, plutonic solids. There we go. How they all work within our very DNA structure. And when I came back, I understood physics like I had studied it my whole life. Like I understood very complex understanding of spiritualism and physics. So
Mhm.
that's kind of what got me started. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of where we got going in it.
When you had so you were on a ventilator, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that. When you had this awakening, was that actually your Kundalini?
No. So when I came back, first thing that was really significant is the doctor, when I first came back and was conscious, was like, you're going to have a very hard recovery. There's a lot of damage to the lung. But I was actually perfect the next day. I felt like a whole new person. So that's when I first started to realize that the way we've been taught about healing is wrong. That there is an outside force in our healing. So the mind over matter, those kind of things. Like I started to research that very deeply. But my Kundalini awakening came in 2022. So I think that's where you got that.
Okay.
And from 20, so that happened in December. And then I had been studying and working with shamans and quantum healers. And I just
Mhm.
dived deep into my spiritual path, but more of the mind. And so this is
Mhm.
where I kind of teach people. I'm like, this was more of the mind. I had to understand the concepts, and I read the books, and I was practicing. I was trying to do astral projection. I was, you know, all the things.
Mm.
But I had had another significant trauma point happen in March of 2022, and it was a reoccurring trauma that had happened in a new environment. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but I ended up choosing differently at that moment to not react the same way I used to when these kind of traumas happened to me. I chose differently. And 2 days after that event happened, I was sitting in my office, I was working on my computer, and all of a sudden I felt this pop. Like the best I could describe it is like a glow stick cracking at the base of my spine. And I just felt this shooting energy through my entire body. And I started to like shake and convulse. And then I just started getting hit with all these voices. And a lot of people that go through Kundalini awakening spontaneously, you can do practices to awaken your Kundalini. The way that I did it was not planned, I wasn't prepared. But a lot of people end up getting labeled psychosis. And I
Yes.
absolutely understand why. Like, I thought too for a minute, I was like, I think I finally like crack. I'm cracked. I've lost it. Like, this is it.
I was gonna say, I really wanna talk about the Kundalini. I just wanna back up 1 second and ask you a question
Yeah.
about when you came through from your pneumonia in 2020, because they still weren't testing for COVID then. Because I
Oh, they were.
remember they were when you had it? Okay,
Yep.
because I knew it took a while for the testing. When you came through and he
Well,
was
this was towards the end of COVID. So March 2020 was when we went into lockdown. So this
yeah,
was early December of 2020. So we
okay,
were still like, I couldn't even have people in my hospital room still. We were still
right,
segregated
okay.
at that point. Yeah.
And you came through and he's like, "You're gonna have a pretty tough recovery. There's a lot of damage," and you felt fine. Did you remember everything that happened?
Yes. So I remembered everything, but it unfolded a little bit more. And this is hard to explain, but you know, like when you have a dream and you remember the dream, but then the details start coming in
Mhm.
like the next day or
Yeah.
something will happen and you're like, oh, yeah, I remember that. It was more like that. So I remembered the key points. I remember the messenger because
Mhm.
that girl is significant in my life here, but not of a boy I went to high school with. I've met her one time in my entire life, and they don't even live in the same state as me. And I remember even then, like, and she's alive and well. I remember being like, why are you here? I remember just like staring at her. But it shows you that our soul contracts aren't necessarily about being in each other's physical reality all the time, that we have an energetic duty to each other as well. Another one is I know that in my soul tribe, I've learned later, was a celebrity that I've never met in my life, but I remember being very, very drawn to his movies and his stories that he would play in his movies.
Mhm.
And I later found out because I actually dreamt about his death the day before it happened. And he came to me and said, goodbye, I have to go. But we are, we think of everything in this reality that's right in front of us, but how much the little pebbles and the ripple out effect affects everyone. And so this is what I was shown in my near death experience. And I was going to circle back to this later, but when I was in my near death experience, I was put up against what I called the void. There was nothing, right? And then all of a sudden it opened up into this, I guess I would say millions of little TV screens is the best I can
Mhm.
describe it. But it showed me my entire life, everything that had happened to me, every heartbreak, every abandonment, every joy, everything. And it was shown to me in a way that I realized it was all interconnected and that every single thing that happened, every thought, every emotion, every memory, everything brought me to that hotel or into that hospital bed. But there I was, I could see myself over there. And that everything has to happen the way it happens to get you to exactly where you're supposed to be. And so
Mhm.
for me, I'm more of a determinist than anything else. I think that free will is not the way that we have been taught. I think that
Mhm.
there is a lot more guidance than people realize, that people channel more than they realize. So we thought an idea or a thought, but it was actually given to us to keep us on that path. And then I was shown after that, it like went dark again. And then I was shown the collective, everyone, you, me, the president, and every person that is in the world, and how all of us are interconnected. And so that's how I knew that even this girl that I've only met once in her entire life, we're still connected on a soul level. That would be
Mhm.
why she was there. And so that's one thing that really stood out from my near death experience is that separation is an illusion. We are not separate from anything, anyone, or any experience. We are one. So when
We're
people, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so when people, I run into this a lot in the spiritual community, almost like I'm evolved because I understand the illusion and the I part, it's like, but we are not separate. The I am is we are really, because you are all sparks of source,
Mhm.
and that source is the creator. And that's one thing that people have a hard time kind of getting past is that you are not separate from God. God is within you, the kingdom is within you, and
Mhm.
so that's what when I say it's like we're all one because we're all just little I call us nanobots. We're down here experiencing the duality of unconditional love. And that's what we're here to experience. Because if you had just unconditional love, which is what God creator source is, right? It's just unconditional love. And you had nothing to juxtapose it to. You don't have, fear, anger, sadness, even joy or loss or abandonment, all these things. How do you truly, truly appreciate that? And that was what, when I was on the other side, that like the way that like unconditional love hits you so hard. You wouldn't know that if you hadn't just lived this lifetime of all this pain and, trials and tribulations that I had just gone through. It was like, I tell people all the time, like, if I could bottle that and give it to the world, I think we'd be in a much better place. But
Wait,
that's kind of
so
our point is we have to get back to that, right? That's what the awakening is all
yes,
about.
it would be amazing. Were you discharged right away?
2 days later.
Okay, which I'm
Yep.
sure they were floored that you were
I
um,
remember and I remember coming back out of my near death experience, and the nurse so I at this point, I think some time had gone by. I can't be 100% sure, but I know the nurse had come in to check my vitals, and I remember that it was crashing out because my blood pressure was so low. And I remember being like, "No, no, leave it. It's fine. It's supposed to do that." And he's like, "It's not supposed to do that." But I remember I just wanted to go back. The second I was back in my body and I decided to come back, I was like, "No, no, no. It's fine." Like I just wanted him to let me go because I
right.
realized how and that's the duality. As soon as I decided to come back and get on this journey, I'm back in this body and I'm like, "Oh no, I wanted to go back." So, yeah, I was actually trying to talk my nurse into just leave it. It's fine.
You're like, "It's I'm good."
Yeah, and
With
that's the thing people don't understand that we're so attached to things in the physical world. I have 2 children. I love my children. I would die for my children. They are my everything here. But a lot of people think, like, because we have this connection to death, like, oh, it's hard and it's sad and they're away. You don't feel any of that. Like your family, when they cross over, it's because we come back into remembering what we're here doing. So
Mhm.
the second you cross back over, you remember this is so that we can grow and evolve. This isn't punishment. This isn't, us being treated poorly and misfair. And, it's not God spiting us and all the things. It's because we came here to evolve, grow, and to learn so that we as a collective can continue to ascend. And that's what we're here doing, especially right now with the new earth shift that's happening.
Yeah, I wanna talk about that too. Can you, for all our friends that are listening that may not know what a Kundalini awakening is,
Yeah.
can you explain that? I know what it is, but I will totally not explain it properly. I know I won't.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Okay. So you have 7 chakras. Actually, if you look here, I've got this nice little chart, but at the root is where we mostly get blocked up. I mean, so your root is about safety, security, and stability. So it's a very much our 3D. If you see here, it's connected to the Earth star, which is 3 feet below your feet, which just connects you to the 3D plane. And it's one of the first ones that get blocked up because we often are feeling like we're not safe or secure in our environment, especially at a young age. If you didn't have a very good upbringing or stability, you get very blocked up. Now that shoots up through the rest of your chakra systems. So you have your sacral, your solar plexus, your heart chakra, throat chakra, crown chakra, or third eye, and then your crown chakra connects you back to your sun star, and so on. But what happens is when we detach and play the game of separation from source, our chakra systems get blocked up because most of us don't even know they exist, let alone that they need proper maintenance and care, and that our emotions are blocking a lot of our chakras. So when they aren't moving properly, so here's a good easy example for women. I get this a lot. If you have a solar plexus block, which is very common in women because it's our willpower, it's our self worth, it's our value for ourselves, all those things,
Mhm.
which get questioned, especially as women, because you're too young to have kids, you're too old to have kids, all the things. Like
Right.
you're never right, right?
Yeah.
So our solar plexus takes a hit through our lifetime, and if you never work with your chakras, that energy of the emotion has to go somewhere because energy cannot be destroyed; it can only be transferred, right? So if your chakra system is the essence of your life force and it is stuck in the solar plexus, your body will actually kick it off into this field here where it'll bounce around until it finds somewhere to stick to. So for women, it's often our left hip. So this is why women, when we get older, tend to limp a little bit on the left side because we took all of that energy that we never healed or released, and now it's got to go somewhere and it goes into our left hip. So what happens
Mm.
with the Kundalini awakening is all of those, I was all blocked up because I had gone through just so much, and I was already starting to work with my energy system at that point, but I was what 36 years old at that point. So I'd been through a lifetime of trauma and I was just starting to play with my chakra system. And so it was like it wasn't quite open. So what happened is that basically the energy from that root chakra spontaneously shot up my pranic tube, my energy system, and shot out and connected through to my sun star. So what happened is all that energy that went flying out of me. Now here's a fun one is when that happened, I did not sleep. I'm not kidding for 32 days at all. Every time I would try to fall asleep, I would astral project. As soon as I'd start to fall asleep, I would be remote viewing, and it was spontaneous because I had been trying to do these things. And then once that energy field opened, I couldn't control it. So I had to work with shamans and work with energy healers to learn how to control it and to bring my energy back into my sovereignty. So yeah, I always tell people, I'm like, if that ever happens and it's spontaneous, you know, obviously medical provider, sure, but find a shaman, find an energy healer that can help you to control the energy because I had many friends and many clients I've had this happen to them that ended up in psych wards because it is easily diagnosed as, a psychotic break.
Psychosis, yeah.
Yeah, and psychosis. Yeah. So, you know, just keep that in mind when if that ever happens to you. But yeah, so then that energy, so then I started getting the energy field to, come back together. It's kind of like you pull an electrical socket and it bursts. That's kind of what happened. Yeah, probably not the greatest analogy, but then I have to learn how to get it back and harness it in. And ever since then, I've been able to channel freely. I also had done my first sessions of light body activations, which I'm a practitioner of now. I had done that in January of 2022. So I
Mhm.
believe that was a big part of what happened as well. So with light body activations, when we make our soul contract, we bring in devices and sentient beings to keep us playing the game of separation. The first part is J seals. So we have 7 J seals on the left side. This keeps our
Mhm.
energy anchored in the 3 dimension. Then our first real session is the keepers of the human legacy, which are little sentient beings that come down with you and the soul contract to keep you playing the game of separation. So if you've ever been in a moment where you're going to make a big choice or decision and you get that pit in your lower stomach, that's your keepers of the human legacy. They're making you question if you're correct. Did I do that? No, no, that's not safe. So you get that little, flutter or pit in your stomach.
Mhm.
Then the next one is the Nephilim, which sits right on the back of your neck. That one's keeping you on the lower vibration. So this is why as you ascend and you start going through your awakening, you almost feel like you're being pushed down, more shoulder pain, more tension in the neck. That's from your Nephilim. Then we have etheric crystals, and then we have your karmic reabsorption. And the big one for individuals. So most of those I take off, or we work with all of them. We remove all the soul vows. We replace your keepers with more upgraded versions that want to help you with the ascension process. But the individual one that's really important is your devices. So your devices are what you brought with you individually to play karma out. So not everybody has the same devices, but they're placed in your subtle fields that will keep you in the loop of a karmic cycle. So if you find that you have a hard time with relationships, you get abandoned a lot, right? That is usually a heart deflection plate that you have in your field. So this is how I do astral surgery and I remove all that from people's fields. And so I had just gone through my sessions of those and it finished, I think, a month before my Kundalini awakening. So it just opens up all the energy. But ever since then, I've been, very keyed in. Oop, my ears started ringing. And now I just know where to build on from there. So,
Now, because I know you do, your and I guess this is a good segue to talk about the QHHT
mhm,
hypnosis. I recently had my very first hypnosis session, and I actually went in wanting to do past life. That's not what
mhm,
happened at all. It's wasn't what I needed, but I did meet my main guide. And
mhm,
it was a female energy source for sure, and I have no name to put with her, but took me on this incredible journey, and I have yet to connect again with her, and I've been really trying through my meditation practice, and that's where I think I was telling you, I've got some kind of block right now that I'm unable to reconnect because I know there's a lot of information that was left on the table that I still need to get. With your hypnosis practice, explain to people what QHHT is, because I know what it is, but
yeah. Did you do a QHHT or past life regression?
I went in just doing past life, but
Okay.
I didn't do the QHHT, but I got not what I wanted, but what I needed, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I always tell people, I'm like, especially as a practitioner, I'm like, I am not in control of this. I am just the guide, right? I am
Yep.
just asking the questions. Dolores
Yeah.
Cannon is who I learned from, and she actually says, she's like, I'm an investigator. That's what
Yep.
my role is in it. So, well, yeah, what your higher self brings in, or your guides, or I never know from one to the next. I mean, I've gotten to the point where I used to say like, oh, I bet they're gonna have something, alien or something. I'm almost always wrong because you just don't know. That person could be a starseed and have a lot of alien lifetimes, but you don't know what their higher self is going to bring because of what the next leg of their journey needs to see. So, you seeing your guide, it was funny because as you were telling me that, I was like, oh, your block is that you're trying too hard into the meditation.
That's what I was
You,
wondering.
you should start working with the physical body. So for me, and I actually teach people over a 28-day period how to do this, but I'll give you
Yeah.
a shortened version. Pick like a right and left. So I always go right side is yes and left side is no. And then I ask a simple yes or no question. And then I feel the sensations on my body and I start to make note of where that sensation is. So for
Hmm.
me, mine is always my left shoulder. So I know if I'm talking to someone, I call it my spirit spot. It almost feels like they put a finger right on the same spot and it just buzzes. But
So
as
it's
I
like
keep,
I'm here, letting them know
yeah,
they're letting you know they're
or
there.
even, like, I'll be saying something where I'll think something and they're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, say that." So, so that kind of pushes me into the, "Oh, I'm onto something here." Or I might walk in a room and it starts buzzing and, I get a feeling that something doesn't feel right, I'll leave because I know that they're like, "Hey, hey, hey, we're here and this isn't somewhere you need to be."
Yeah.
Things like that. It happens for all kinds of things, but I
Right.
had to learn how to communicate with them. So I always tell people like start simple, start right, yes, left, no, and start noticing where you feel sensations in your body and do this consistently for 28 days. And then listen to the advice that they give you, right? So if you say, should I eat at, I don't know where people eat anymore, I don't eat out, but at this place, and you get a yes, go eat there,
Yeah.
and see what happens. There could be something that is on your path. Same with the no, but what you'll find is that they're consistently in the same spot. Now,
Mm.
it could shift a little bit depending on you and your practice, but once they realize that you realize what it is, it'll get stronger and stronger
Yeah.
very, very fast because now they know they've made the connection. You're
Mhm.
understanding it. So as soon as I made the connection that that spot always would buzz when something, it's like now they just are like, yeah, 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 yeah.
Right.
I
Yeah,
always
they
tell
don't
people,
leave you
like,
alone. It's like,
yeah, I always tell them, like, your guides are opportunists. As soon as
yeah.
they know that you're listening and that they can communicate with you, they will, and often. And so a lot of things I work with clients are always the ones that are feeling like they're detached from their guides or feeling like they can't communicate or that they're not communicating or that they've been abandoned by their team or all that because they're there. It's just you haven't figured out how to communicate with them yet fully.
Yeah, and you know what? I figured that it was because I was trying too hard. I kind of had a feeling. I actually may have gotten that answer because I when you said that, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I figured that's what it was." With your there's so much I want to talk to you about. I don't know where to start. With your, practice, like, I know with this hypnosis, but now you get all these downloads of information now. Do you consider yourself a medium?
No, no. I consider myself an intuitive. Um,
Intuitive? Okay.
I mean, I think words, these are all just human words. So for me, I don't really resonate with any of them because the way that I see things now is that this is just us as light beings, our natural state.
Mhm.
So I didn't do anything or I'm not special by any means or gifted. I've just remembered what we are and what we're capable of as light beings. So no, I don't really I don't really do a lot of work with people that have passed on. In fact, I'll try to avoid that. That's one of my places that, people are like, "What don't you do?" I'm like, "I just don't like to communicate with the dead very much." Uh, because I understand our soul contracts and we have a time where we're supposed to be here and we do what we're supposed to be here to do. And even our death was planned and the ripple effect from maybe how you passed on was all part of an intricate web of designed very, very carefully. So for me, I don't really communicate much with people that have passed on. And I think that, they don't really want to communicate with us either in that way because they know what we're here doing. Don't dwell on this because this was their path. And I know that's hard for people because you love them
Yeah.
and but that's the idea that we're separate and we're not separate. We are all interconnected all the time.
Mhm.
And the veil between those two places is so thin. When I say they're with you all the time, they are. Like the
Yeah.
the idea that we're separated is something that came from dogma, and we are not separated. Even if you go into like the science of your eye, the reason why we can see ghosts sometimes is because you jump into amplifications of different frequencies. They are on the frequency and you split. There they are. You guys are on the same frequency, but our eyes only see 350 to 750 nanometers of light frequency. And that's, to give you a baseline, less than 1% of what's happening on the earth plane. And so they're here all the time. You just cannot perceive it,
Mm.
at least not yet. Because for me, I see things like that all the time because this is a true story. I went into my doctor, I think it was in 23, I can't remember exactly, but got my eyes checked. Nothing had changed. And then I went in a year later and he's like, it's so weird because your eyes are completely different. And so then I started like, so I don't wear glasses anymore. I sometimes I'll put them on, but I don't need them. So I started to research this. And as people ascend, and if you go into like some CIA documents, they actually talk about how we were taught something called hard focus. as a young child. This is why they pointed to things on boards like, look at this, look, look right here, and why you had to learn these very detailed things because it taught you hard focus. But naturally, as a kid, we all were doing the thing where we'd blur our eyes in class because
Mhm.
that's the natural thing to do. That's why it's called soft gazing, and that is natural for us. But our eyes, as they told us to hard focus, actually shifted into that way of being. And so it
Mhm.
became more us in hard focus. But if you untrain your eyes into hard focus back into soft focus, you see a lot more that's happening on the earth playing. And that's another thing I teach my clients, like how to actually see things like there's energetic parasites everywhere. They're called archons, and they basically hook on to people and they drain your energy. And they get a knack for liking certain kind of people, right? So it's one of the things I do in astral surgery, especially when we do light body activation, is remove the slave hooks and remove the parasites. But you can actually see them when you start to soft gaze. So if any of your viewers want to practice this, get in front of a plain white wall would be best, and then go back to like when you were a kid and you blur your eyes out, and then start looking around, but not hard, soft, like you're kind of chasing it, but don't look directly at it because you'll start to see pockets of energy. And the more you
Mhm.
do this, the more they'll become profound. And this is how you can actually see your loved ones when they visit and things like that. So,
What was it you were saying when we first started? You said you realized, like, all the information we've been given is incorrect,
yeah,
basically, and you just went down a rabbit hole, to figure all this out, which you sound so much like me because I would be the same way. Tell
all
Can
the
you
rabbit holes.
all the yeah, and if there's a rabbit hole, Brianna went down it.
Yeah, basically, and it was my life path. I mean, that was all I did. People were like, "What'd you do for fun?" I'm like, "No, it really is." I was reading all the time. History was something I couldn't get away from. Things
Yeah.
would nag at me in the night that I'm like, "That doesn't even make sense." And now it's funny because I realized I was training for what I do now my whole life. And it's funny when, people used to say to me, they're like, "Bree is a plethora of useless knowledge." Like trivia was my thing, like, and that was but now I realize it's not useless at all. It all clicked into place,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Oh, I understand where they manipulated the history." Now, a big one, and anybody that knows me, they'll laugh when they watch this, is Christopher Columbus. It irks me
Oh,
to no end. It's like I have one of my exes will sit there and say, like, when Christopher Columbus discovered America. I'm like,
you're like,
uh,
"Do you wanna
yeah.
really talk about this?"
No, that's how I'm like, "Do you wanna talk to me ever again?"
Yeah.
No, it's one of
Well,
those
because I was gonna ask you, what are a couple things that we just think is a given that are not actually facts at all?
Yeah, okay, so Christopher Columbus is
Yeah.
since I already brought that one up, is a big one. There's so much evidence in history that the Knights Templar were here, the Chinese were here, the Vikings were here, obviously Native Americans were here, the Mayans had come up here, and these are all factual evidence archived, but yet the academic world was still pushing this narrative that Christopher Columbus discovered America. But if you look at all of the documentation, it's safer to say that he landed in the Bahamas and, genocided much of that area. Even the Knights Templar, we know that they came to America. There's a diary entry from the Queen of Portugal acknowledging this, that the Knights Templar had been here 800 years prior to Christopher Columbus, sailing. So it's things like that. The Egyptians, the pyramids. I mean, pyramids are much older than they tell us. And then even
Mhm.
like the Globa Tepe that was discovered, you can even watch them trying to do it in real time now. It goes against everything that we were taught in the academic world, but they're still trying to tell us, "Oh no, it's not that old." Yet you have so many people that are, archaeologists, geologists that are like, "Yes, it is. It's that old." So why they're holding that narrative makes you question. And 20 years ago, I was thinking that's like, why are they holding a narrative so hard? Why will they not even look at new evidence? And it occurred to me that because this web that has been weaved so deeply between, I always call them the pillars, politics and government, the medical system, religion, and the academics, were all interwoven to trap the collective. And,
Mhm.
we were basically taken hostage and we don't even see it because, the cage has been, I tell, there's a line from, it says, they, we don't have chains, but we have tiny screens and that keeps us enslaved. And it's like, yeah, so it's like, we don't question anything. how much time do you spend doom scrolling? And then people are like reposting it like it's factual and it continues. We're continuing doing the work for this establishment that has kept us encaged for so long. But so many people are starting to awaken to it. Same with the Vikings, it's like they're depicted as just these like brutes and, raiders, and they were just these horrible people. But if you actually go into the deeper histories of them, they were incredibly cultured. They were widespread. But yet we always kind of push that all away. So yeah, I think there's a lot of, I could do that all day. There's a ton of them, but
Yeah.
even the Anunnaki, we look at the Emerald Tablets and even the Dead Sea Scrolls, they talk about these four kings that ruled for 249 years or 249,000 years. And it's like, people are like, oh, it was an embellishment. I'm like, no, it wasn't. Look at, there's so many different documents that back this up. So even the idea that we were always mortal, living 100 years. So we actually have what's called a death seal. One of the day seals I removed is called the death seal. That was implanted in us and it can be reversed. If you really want to get into some deep rabbit holes, there are people on this planet who are 400 or 500 years old. And if you want to watch a great show on this, is called Disclosure on Unified TV, and they talk Conversations with Ray. He works for the TLS and talks a lot about this,
What's it
other
called?
side. I think it's Disclosure is the name of it, but Conversations with Ray. And he talks with the TLS is the Light System Organization, and think CIA, but of light workers, people fighting against the establishment that's trying to enslave humanity.
Okay. I'll look it up for sure. That's right up
Yeah.
my alley.
Oh, it's an amazing show. I watch it.
Okay. With, you mentioned reincarnation and, a lot of people argue about it because of the Bible and there's so much misinformation. And I was just talking to somebody yesterday. There's like 1,000 years that are missing from the Bible alone. That's just what they think. Like that's like how do you like break that myth and that gap with it?
Yeah, well, and even the Bible wasn't pieced together or even a collection until 300 years after, Jesus
Right.
passed on. So you got to wonder, even put yourself in your own shoes. The people that put the collection of those stories together, their parents, grandparents, great grandparents didn't even know what was going
Mhm.
on. So it's very misconstrued. If you look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, Yeshua was mentioned many times of going to Egypt and learning at the Egyptian mystery schools, so it's like he was a healer. But yet when you talk to both sides of that, oh no, that's not right. That's not right. Well, it's like, well, there's evidence that supports that. So why are we just digging our heels in? It kind of goes back into like history, it's, the book of Enoch or the book of Timothy, all these books that were removed as well. But as far as reincarnation, most cultures accept reincarnation. Most religions accept reincarnation. And it's very simple when you start to look at, okay, and I want to start by saying I want everyone to believe what they want to believe. But for me, there's a lot of evidence that what we're talking about here today was happening then. But it's now that's demonic or that's witchcraft or, we labeled it this after these people talked about it. Moses went on the mountain and talked to God, but yet if I talk to an entity, it's immediately the devil. That doesn't even make sense. You know what I mean? How do you know that he wasn't talking to the devil then? Right?
Right.
But that's where we cherry picked the stories, and like, oh no, it's not, you're not powerful. And even words like the only begotten son, that's an exclusionary vocabulary, meaning only him, not you. And it's a subtle subconscious program that we have. Even the sacrificial lamb, that's guilt consciousness, guilt programming. Because now you feel guilty, he died for you. Oh my God, if I do anything wrong, he died for me. And you
Well, I was
immediately,
raised Catholic, so
yeah, yeah.
you don't
And
need to tell me about the Catholic guilt.
yeah, exactly. And then it's like, well, only God could judge me. But yet then everyone proceeds to judge everybody. And
Mhm,
so
mhm.
it's all of these things that were used to manipulate religion and what, Yeshua's true teachings were. I mean, we're talking about a man, just think about it, that went into temples and kicked over tables for taxation. And yet then it's like we pass around a plate, right? It's like, so it's very pick and choose, you know. I took my daughter to it's a like Lutheran church, but I encourage everyone to study religion. And
Yeah.
I don't think any religion is bad per se, but as long as you kind of take it with a grain of salt, that there's room for interpretation. But took my daughter, and you're talking about when Matthew walks on water. And so, I am holding the Bible, and the pastor's up there, and he's like, Yeshua, if it's you out there, I will come to you. And Jesus like, it's me, come to me. And so Matthew starts walking on water, and then he starts to sink. And, Jesus walks over to him and says, Matthew, you lost faith. And I'm reading this in the Bible, Matthew, you lost faith. And then the pastor said, did you hear that? He said, you lost faith in me. I'm like, nope, that's not what it says. Those small little things that were easy
Yeah.
to manipulate. He didn't say you lost faith in me. He said you lost faith. You lost faith in yourself. And this is the alchemy that he's teaching. He was teaching us that if you believe and act out of unconditional love, you can make miracles happen too. He even says in the Bible, you shall be far greater than I. So these are the parts that I feel like get manipulated and taken away from us when he's saying that the true power in the kingdom is within each of us. Even the second coming of Christ, I talk a lot about this. People are like, oh, we're in Revelations. We are. Now,
That's
way
why I
back,
brought up the 1,000 years.
yeah, and we are
Yeah,
because,
because of
but
Revelations, yeah.
it's the new earth. And so we are in where the 3D is ascending into the 5D. And so in Revelations, to summarize, it's, the good, the ones that were holy, the Christ connected, will go off to heaven, and the rest will be left to, sort out their karma. And I'm just, paraphrasing. But what's happening on the earth plane right now is we are rattling into two different dimensions. So the 3D is going to play out the suffering, the pain, the fear, the anger, the hostilities, all that dark energy that people are carrying or that they're inflicting on others. They will stay in the 3D to play out that timeline. But the people that start to ascend and to come back to self and come back to source will ascend into the 5D. So if you think about the energetic connection that I'm talking about, that's basically what Revelation said.
Right.
So a lot of people also are talking about the second coming of Christ. I'm like, I don't think Yeshua, the man, is coming down from the sky.
Right.
I believe that the second coming of Christ is us, the ones that are awakening to the illusion that we are separate from God, that we are separate from each other. That is the second coming of Christ. All of us as the collective, because we are Christ consciousness,
Mhm.
connecting back to the source to bring it back to the earth plane. So, I think the truth of the Bible, that there's some truth there, but you got to kind of rethink it,
Yeah.
look at what's really happening around us. But yes, I agree that we are in Revelation, just not in the way people think.
Yeah, I think it's dangerous when people stand up and give you their own interpretation of what's written there, though everybody has a right to do that. But
Yeah.
I think it's dangerous and organized religion that, they're not, it could be this, but there's so many people that stand up there and preach and it's my way and it's my beliefs and this is what you need to believe too. And I
Yeah.
just think it's very dangerous. I think
No,
that's
I agree.
I want to shift gears a little bit to your practice. Do you is with your clients, is everything virtual in person? Do you do a mixture of both?
Yeah, I do a mixture of both. So I'm actually sitting in my office right now. So I do in person. So I'm surrounded by sound healing holes. I've got
Mhm.
all the things. And then I do those, but a lot of my appointments are remote. So I have a lot of people that are all over the world. So I do appointments via Zoom, or some of them I don't even have to have you on the phone, depending on what we're working on. But yeah,
Oh, wow, you don't even need to be on the phone?
for some of them, yeah. So I do something called Metatronia and Metatrea light therapy or light fusion therapy. So that's where I bring in sacred geometry, Archangel Metatron, and then the goddess Metatrea. So Metatron heals the masculine wounds or the divine masculine wounds because we're a balance of both, right? You're not
Mhm.
all feminine energy, you're not all masculine, and if you
Right.
are on that, then you're imbalanced. So the Metatron comes in, but it's all using sacred geometry. Metatrea comes in another session and heals the feminine wound to bring in and activate your divine masculine, divine feminine energy. So if you're feeling like you're an overgiver or a people pleaser, then
Mhm.
you're too heavy in your feminine energy. If you are really bad at accepting anything from anyone, then you're too far into your masculine or, multiple. I think everybody probably knows a lot about the divine feminine masculine. But for that one, I do the Metatron. If I can, I like doing that one in my office, but obviously it can't always work. But that one I usually will call and I'll set it up and, hey, we're gonna start now. But then the next day or the day after, within 2 days, I do Mediterranean and I just basically send them a quick text. I'm getting started because I don't want to interfere with the healing because Mediterranean, no, Mediterranean is a very, very intense energy, especially on women, because we have gone through so much, even having children. People don't even think about what that does to the physical body, just having children
Oh,
as a trauma. It's
yeah, and it's called labor for a reason, right?
right. Yeah. And so a lot of people are like, "Oh, I love my kids," but don't realize that on an energy level, that is a huge trauma to your field. And so again, women, that we could carry that portal. I mean, I was telling people like women are portals into this dimension. That's an amazing thing. And we don't even think about it.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
so like for me, when I did Mediterranean for the first time, so Metatron I did, it was great. But when I did Mediterranean, because I had gone through so many like sexual traumas,
Yeah.
so many abandonment wounds. Like when she came in my first time, I was 4 hours. I mean, I felt this energy cocoon and I could not move. And at that point, I was already astral projecting very, I could close my eyes and be out very quickly. Like she wouldn't even let me do that. She's like, no, no, you're going to stay here and we're going to work this out. It's like you could feel it's like a very divine, motherly, loving energy. But it was like she wouldn't even let me escape the body, so it's very, very profound. But yeah, with that one, I usually don't need to be on the phone or even, well, I'll just text like, hey, I'm going to get started. Remember to have your water and
Yeah. What
be in.
about the QHHT?
So QHHT, I do in person only. And to circle back, we got off track on QHHT. So there's a difference between past life regression and QHHT. And I think it's really significant. So what my practice does that's a little different from most is I'm not just doing quantum healing because that's only one part of a system. And so I work a lot with the whole system. So your nervous system, and a lot of people they get told like, oh, raise your vibration, right? I remember how frustrating it was when I first started out and I was reading all these things. You just have to raise your vibration, raise your frequency.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what does that even mean? Like,
Yeah.
how and how do I know? But the
Yeah.
first thing you have to learn is that it's your nervous system. And if you're in
Mhm.
dysregulated nervous system, you can't, no matter how many times you ohm, you are not going to raise your vibration. So first thing I like working with people is the nervous system and then subconscious patterns. And that is why I love QHHT because not only are we looking at past lives or for you, it was like your guides, but whatever comes through, they're opportunists, right? Great. But then in the ending of the session of QHHT is I take you down into the subconscious, so the very lowest brainwave we can get into. And basically we are talking to your higher self or the subconscious. They refer to themselves as the collective because again, we are not separate from each other.
Mhm.
Everything is one, the law of one. Anyway, but when I go into the subconscious, I always tell people, I'm like, send me like 12 to 15 questions that you want to know. And I say, I'm like, what 12 to 15 questions would you ask God? That's what you want to ask. And it's really fun because when you go into the subconscious, you'll start to notice like people no longer are talking in the first person or they're third person. So they'll be like, Tracy is holding herself back by doing this. So it's very fun for me to like the shift, of the two. But in there we can heal old patterns, old wounds, even the physical body. I could do say with the subconscious, we do body scans.
Mhm.
That is more of a healing
Yeah.
hypnosis. So you're healing the physical body and healing the root attachment to what is causing the physical body to malfunction, which is really what's happening. A disease is dis-ease. Your energy is causing an interference and it has to go somewhere. Again, energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be transferred. But it's so beautiful because we can talk to the subconscious, bring up all the subconscious patterns that are keeping you in limitation or lack or scarcity or blocked or whatever it is for the individual. And then we can heal it at the root. And that is really beautiful because the subconscious patterns fuels your conscious thoughts. Your conscious thoughts send a message to our nervous system. And this is why we are all walking around in constant anxiety. So we heal the subconscious, bring it forward, look at it, and then it dissipates because now we've seen it. Now, a
Mhm.
good example I use of this is a couple years ago, my daughter pointed out, she's like, I think the cutest thing you do, mom, is when you walk into a room, you click your tongue. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah. Anytime you walk through a door, you click your tongue. I'm like, no, I don't. And she's like, yes, you do. I'm like, what? I can't unsee it now. I do. and I never noticed it. And so that's what I mean. It's like once it comes forward, now now I don't do it because I became aware of it. And so I stopped. I trained myself not to do it, but it was a tick that I would do. And
Wow.
I never even realized I was doing it until someone pointed it out to me. And that's what we do
Wow.
with QHHT is we bring that forward so we can examine it, look at it, and so we can put it away so that it no longer interferes with your daily life. So that's why I love QHHT is one of the prongs that I work with. And then you've got your quantum field. So your energy system, you got your subtle fields, all of that is working. So you got your mental body, your spiritual body, your cathartic body, casual body, astral body, and all of those are playing a part in your physical body. Your physical
Mhm.
body is just the result of everything else. And so I always tell people like learn energy, learn your systems because you will completely change your body and your health even. I always show people these before and after pictures. So I have a picture of the day before I went into the hospital for the first time, when I had
Uh-huh.
the fungal pneumonia. So, like, I was just starting to feel sick, but I wasn't really sick yet. And ironically, I'm sitting in the exact spot that this happened. But I show people that picture and then I show them a picture of me 1 year later. I look completely different. And it's
Oh,
not because I did anything, but it was because my energy was holding so much. Oh, my lights are flickering so much that when I finally released it all and like started to actually let go of the energy and the emotions and all the blocks that I had been carrying in my physical body, I did a 180 and I didn't do any crash diets. I didn't do any of that. It's that our body, like our nervous system, if it's feeling unsafe, it actually holds weight. So we
yeah.
gain weight from it because our body is telling our nervous system we're not safe. And so we need to make a buffer, right?
Right.
So a lot
Right.
of the times our weight isn't even overeating or anything. This is why people that struggle with losing weight, they're doing all the things. They're doing 8 hours of cardio a week and they're eating 400 calories and they can't lose any weight because it's not in the physical, it's in the energy. So we
Mhm.
start to work with the energy systems and it will fall off because it's
Yeah.
something you're carrying through some trauma point, and a lot of this is past life trauma too that you brought with
Mm.
you, and you're
Yeah.
still learning because your subconscious is fueling all your past lives into your physical reality as well.
Right. This is just so fascinating. Well, I wanna thank you for being on, and I wanna be respectful to your time, but I will include all your contact information, in the show notes, and, how people can reach out to you, and there is a opportunity for people to still work with you remotely, which is great because 'cause you're based in Minnesota, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I
So the
want
only one that I don't do in person is QHHT.
UHA.
Everything else I can do only because I literally had a man get up in the middle of one of my sessions, and I'm like, it would just be irresponsible if I was doing it and I wasn't able to
Control
be there.
the yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
so
I get it, yeah, and I might schedule something with you actually because
yeah,
I'm just ready. I'm, like, so curious about everything, I want all the messages whenever you
yeah,
all the
yeah. Well, I
information.
do one that's, called the Soul Blueprint, and that might be a good one for you, and I always recommend I'm like, I have 2 that are my go-tos for new clients. So if you're looking more to understand your journey, to connect to your higher self, connect to your guides, I have what's called a Soul Blueprint. So I go through, I use your astrology, I use your numerology, your soul contract, I do some Akashic records readings, and then tarot, and I combine
Mhm.
all those and I do a whole reading on what you're here, what's your purpose, why you're doing it, why you're having blockages, what's keeping you stuck, all of those things, because I can see all that in your astrology chart. And then another one is a signature session. So I offer many different types of quantum healing. But with the signature, you get 30 minutes where we kind of chit chat. I get to kind of intuit what's going on in your deeper fields, see what's in your subtle fields, and then I
Mhm.
do a blend of different modalities. So depending on what it is that's keeping you stuck or blocked, I might
Mhm.
use a sound healing with Metatron and, so just kind of make my
Okay.
own.
I'll message you and we'll schedule
Yeah.
something because I definitely would love to do something with you because I feel
Yeah.
like I'm at, like, you'll understand.
No, I
But thank you so much,
yes, thank you.
and I will, I'll let you know when this is gonna release. I've gotta do my editing and everything, but if everybody listening, please share your comments. If you have any questions for Brianna, I'll have all her contact information. Share this with anybody that you think this might help. Because if you're struggling right now, you need answers, you just feel stuck, this is a great opportunity for you to get past that in a gentle way and have somebody with experience guide you through it. So it's really important that when you're healing, you find something that works for you and makes sense. But this is such a great way to get information, so it all makes sense. It's all together. So thank you so much. You are a trauma rock star, and you
Thank
are
you.
officially a part of the
Thanks for having.
family. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
The content on this podcast revolves around personal life experiences and is meant to serve as a learning tool. I am not a certified therapist or medical expert. This podcast doesn't offer medical, psychological, or professional advice. If you're curious about your mental or physical well being, feel free to reach out to a licensed healthcare professional for assistance.